recording. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second cataloging special interest group meeting of July 2023. This is part of our experimental quarterly later in the day groups for those who find the other time rather inconvenient. So welcome. Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring to the group? Everything's been going perfectly.
No, but from a cataloging standpoint, that's okay.
Something tangential is I've been really following with interest and attempting to sign off on a development in Bugzilla for a preservation module.
Ooh.
It's really rather exciting. I'll go off and take a look at that bug number and get the link into the chat.
Yes, tell us all about it.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat. It's really challenging to try to sign off on. It's really extending everything I know how to do, but it's really fun because the community is so helpful and supportive. So, getting Bugzilla up here right now. It is bug number 30708. I'll put that in the chat. Oh, David, you are so fast with the bug numbers. Thank you. And from what I can tell so far, there's a system, and it provides a new system preference to turn it on, and then in your main menu in the staff client, you see preservation, and it allows staff to add items to a waiting list. And then in the preservation module, you can establish various trains that are sort of workflows. Say one is to the bindery, one is to your digitization lab, another is to your repair lab, and then you add items from the waiting list into the trains, and then off they go, and it just looks so fabulous. So if you take a look at the bug, you can see I had posted some questions and difficulties, and Jonathan kindly answered. So I'm going to attempt to sign off on it again, hopefully tomorrow. And I'm trying to be the second sign off on this because I would love to see this implemented. And I wanted to be sure to mention it here because it's kind of cataloging. Well, we're the closest thing to a real technical services group, so thought I'd mention it here.
That sounds like fun. And the trains are sort of like, well, could you use the code from location codes or shelving location?
You establish some new values in the, let me look at the test plan. You establish some new values in your not loan.
Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can create a new category. It has you create preservation colors, just to test. And it's something like what we do, because I already have a value of mending parentheses technical services.
Mm-hmm.
And this would attach to an item?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It makes sense because, if you've got two Gutenberg Bibles and one is in perfect condition, one needs to have some work done on it.
I mean, it's super fancy, and I think it would work for, really large libraries. But in our small library, I would love it just to be able to put items into the mending queue, which is my office, or the scanning queue, which is Mark's office. Just that little, we'd have 2 trains, but it would be really, really useful. And then to enable our public services person with the right permissions to just add the item to the preservation waiting list and put it there, and then we would know exactly how to find our items. Right now we have to say, oh wait, it could be in any of these places.
I suppose you could keep changing item notes. This sounds like it'll be a lot less
Yeah. This
pointing
sounds
and
like a
clicking.
workflow. It enables you to use Koha to manage a workflow for probably
Yes,
anything.
exactly.
I mean, Koha, as you say, Fred, is infinitely configurable. So depending on how it works, I can see like other departments taking over the
Right, because pretty much it's a workflow for many staff being able to say, this is going into this wait list.
Yeah.
Now I need someone here that understands which which train it should go into. Off it goes. Then off it comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if that would help with holds. If you could use it almost like a hold thing.
So that's what I've been really excited about. What have y'all been doing or excited about?
Oh, I'm still struggling with Elasticsearch and getting that same error message. I can't find something in line whatever. I need to go back and work on that a little more. But now I'm trying to get caught up in the author's catalog. And I still can't get, let's see, 2211 to, what's it, when you stage an upload, don't stage by this rule, like don't stage by, or don't include 245s, or look for duplicates. You know what I'm trying to say, I hope.
Oh, the matching rule when you
Matching
import
rule.
records.
Yes. Still can't get the matching rule to work. So what I'm doing is just taking out the records that I'm updating. Turns out you can, let's say, have all the barcodes, and you can make a list of that, go into batch delete records, and then you can choose a list and delete that. You can't put items in a list into a cart, but this is another sort of workaround.
You can't put items from a list into a cart, or you can't put items in a cart to a list.
No, I think you can move cart to a list, but when I only tried it today, but there's nothing about cart in the list.
Why would you want to move from a list to a cart?
Well, now I don't have to because I can batch delete the records and the list without having to put them in a cart.
Okay.
So it didn't work this way, so I had to find that way.
As long as you found your way.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't had any problems importing on 2211, but we match with the, if I'm matching bibliographic records and overlaying, it's on the 999 subfield C.
Mhm. Yeah, I've imported using that one and that works.
Maybe I'll try setting that one up. But every time I try to create a matching rule, it just doesn't work.
So that was pre-existing. Like I had that before the upgrade.
Mm-hmm. We did
Yeah,
too.
I think I did too. Well,
Okay, well then,
I had the old, some of the ones like the 099 field, the match on that. And it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, we haven't used the 099, so.
I use it for the PubMed identifier, which is one given to every Medline record. So.
Is that something, it reminds me of things that we might have like in 035s, the, you know, other record IDs.
Yes, but I want to be able to look up by that number and just that number. But when my revision earlier this year, I made it the call number and the barcode. It's always been the barcode, but now I figure, might as well make it the call number too.
And
So
now
now
you're
I
getting
have
fancy.
now I have 3 ways to look it up. And you can do a lot of things by barcode numbers, like put them in a list and then delete the list.
It's full circle.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody else have anything they'd like to bring to the group?
I was trying to find for us. So we upgraded to 2211 last week. Gosh, it's been a long week. I was trying to find my cataloging related stuff. This is one that we ran into. It's been patched already, but it's been a frustration, especially with magazines, because we've got like 70, 80 items on a magazine record. So when you go in to add a new one, it no longer jumps down to the add item anchor. So you have to scroll all the way down through all those items to get there. But it looks like that bug's been fixed. It should be coming in 0.08, which I assume we'll be getting soon, hopefully.
Do you find that magazine process really slow? Because that's what our catalogers have complained about. They want to switch to the regular serials module.
If it gets slow if we get too many items, but we do it where like anybody that adds a magazine has to have their own record for it. So like we never get up there with those item counts.
So each library has their, I'm sorry, each library has their own separate.
Right. So like Iowa has a time record and it's further divided out by year. So like if once we get to around 100 items, then we'll start a new chunk of year. Then that's how it's just always been for us. We tried the subscription module, the serials module for we tested it, but we decided that it was like it added a lot of complexity to workflows that we didn't find necessary, and a lot of areas for mistakes and things for our librarians. So that's what we settled on way back when, and that's how we've been doing it.
Thanks.
I found some of those issues with the serials module, but I found it really allows me to track my claiming of missed issues, because I like to be able to set the status to claimed and put in a note like by phone, by email, and then help figure that out, especially since we missed a lot during the pandemic.
Yeah, and we've never really had a need for that level of tracking on it. So we never went down that road. Another thing I've been playing with is I brought this bug up a little while back about the idea of using the Google Books API to make a brief record. After they added it to the patron suggestion form, I thought, why not cataloging, right? Because we used to be able to pull brief records from Amazon through a service where it just like generated a really trashy MARC record, but it was a starting point, so you didn't have to type in everything. So I've been playing with that, so I can share my screen.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah.
It's still kind of junky, but I got it mostly working. So we use pretty much exclusively the basic editor. That's, again, we've been using Koha for a long time, and that's just what people are used to. So we never really transitioned to the advanced editor. So I added a Google Book search button here. It's already filled in so that I can't show you the trick. Let me refresh the page. So obviously that needs cleaned up because it's ugly. But if you put in an ISB in here, another thing that needs cleaned up is there's no feedback after you push the button. But magically, if you go to the fields that I'm asking it to populate, it's pulled that information over from Google. So I got title, subtitle, pub date. It does pull over and the publisher name if it's got that, paging, and then a description. So again,
That's wonderful.
trashy record, but a good starting point that required a little less typing.
Less typing is wonderful.
Yeah. Would that work with LibraryThing? I've heard several other libraries with their software have it connect to a LibraryThing account and it automatically populate. And I'm like, and that would actually, because some libraries actually use that for their software. Now it's not going to be great. Like you're going to have to edit it. So some libraries, I'm like, do I really want you to have this power? But
yeah, so I'm still really not good with APIs and stuff, but I can show you what the code looks like that I wrote. And I think that if you could figure out what kind of call you need to make, you could do it. So so right now, that's the suggestions. I added it to the staff client suggestions as well because I had that request. That's how I figured it out. But basically what it's doing here, I'm adding the button, and then here I'm saying, hey, go out to Google, take that ISBN I just put in, send it out to Google, and then give me some information back from Google. And I think I've got that here. So if you can get the JSON data, which is what this is, from the LibraryThing API, it's just a matter of figuring out, oh, I need the volume info title, and that's what I'm going to get. Volume info title, assign that to a variable, and then insert it into the input. So I'm putting that into the input field for the 245A. So in theory, yes, it could be adapted to use any API that has that sort of information you can pull into the record. In practice, I have no idea. It works for Google because somebody already figured that out, and I've just kind of reverse engineered it for my purposes. But I think anything's possible with enough headbanging and whatnot.
But all of that are multiple foreign languages to me. So got no clue.
Could you put your wizardry into the chat or someplace where I could steal it?
Onto the Koha community wiki.
That too.
Let me polish it up a little more and then I can do that, sure.
I find that anytime we can have users pull information, it gets at a better chance that it's actually a title that we're going to also call a title, and it eliminates typos and easily confused words, and you know, a European U when there really is one, or it's a US omitting the U in color, or yeah, that's pretty slick, Jason.
Yeah.
It's bad. I keep going down these rabbit holes. It's like, oh, I have a meeting next week, but I really want to see if I can make that work. So like I'm doing the fun stuff instead of the mandatory stuff. Yeah.
Or let's see, I've got a meeting at 4. I should probably prepare for it. And whoops, it's almost 4. That's why I don't have a nice background today. Yeah. I also have a stain on my shirt, but I'm only from about here up. So.
Right. If you hadn't mentioned it, we'd never know.
No.
Well, anybody else been playing with anything neat? Well, I suppose there's absolutely nothing wrong with a short meeting.
I had a quick question because I'm not really a cataloger.
Many people here are not really catalogers. It's
and,
okay.
I've not lately. I've been having a bit of a break, but I do test a few bugs, and and sometimes, you know, if the test plans are good for cataloging, you know, I can sort of get the basics, but you know, some of the advanced stuff like related records and all that things. So are there any, you know, the Library of Congress has got some basic MARC tutorials, but what would you say would be the best learning resource here, or is there something around already? I just haven't, I'm being lazy because I haven't done a Google search and done anything lately, but what would you say is the best sort of resource or resources, or where to look to learn a bit more about using MARC to catalog things?
Well, I think very highly of the link I just put in the chat, the description of every possible MARC record and what it does. Well, every recognized standard MARC record, never mind the fields I'm making up.
The other thing I would point to is I did put on the wiki a good enough MARC record, and that has, I mean, yes, Fred, I'm a huge fan of that Library of Congress site, but what it doesn't give you is which are the most important fields. So let's see if I can pull up that good enough MARC record. Here we go. This is your good enough bibliographic record. Oh yes, and thank you, Michelle. OCLC bibliographic formats and standards is an interpretation of the MARC 21 formats for OCLC, but they're very practical, and they have some excellent examples of that go a little bit further, and they're also available for free to anybody.
I also created a cheat sheet that's on the koha-US Learn page of all the cataloging resources that I wish I'd known when I started cataloging. And it includes some very basic guides, which I think I found more, but I have to like do some digging. But it has like for classification, for MARC, and then MARC edit, because eventually catalogers need to enter the world known as MARC edit.
Thank you for all of those. That gives me somewhere to start. I said, the good test plans help, say do this, do that. And if I can follow that, then it's normally okay. But sometimes it's trying to understand the concept behind some of the fields, and particularly some of the more complicated stuff. Yeah.
I would also encourage you to reach out to me. I'm always happy to chat about this to anybody, to discuss about the concepts. I'll put my email address in the chat.
Yeah, and I've certainly found I've watched some of the videos for this group. So yeah, demonstrating some of those more tricky things, or there's always seems to be, sometimes there's more than one way to do things, so so that's always been good as well.
Yes, what Heather has taught me that I really value is that, or maybe I subtly knew this, but she said it was okay to do this. As long as your users can find the books, it really doesn't matter. I've got a really small library with reference and reserve, and each one is an item type, as I brought up last week, because each of them has its own circulation rule. But we have a really extensive collection of nursing certification test books. And Heather convinced me, yeah, I could do WY 18.2 dot certification and then the cutter. Yeah, I can do that. Except Koha sometimes splits like CEN, which puts each one on its own line. I'm not sure why the spine label creator does that. I finally made it lowercase. That worked.
Yeah, my only caveat to that is that it's a very typical growth curve for a collection to start out saying only our users are interested in this, so we're going to do anything we want. And then it grows, and then it grows, and then it grows. And then you want to start getting bibliographic records from somewhere and maybe sharing your bibliographic records. And that's when standardized approaches come in handy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and you're very welcome for the resources, David. And we're always happy to chat about anything. Nothing is too basic. And also, I'd mention too, on any bug, if it looks like it would be interesting to draw my attention to it, throw my email address in the CC field on any bug, and I'm always happy to take a look. And I'm chatty, I probably will chime in.
Thanks, Heather. Thanks, everyone.
Of course.
I have a really good story about standards, but I think I should wait until you stop the recording. So if you want to stick around after she stops, I'll tell you.
Okay, that will be the after party.
Yes.
Ooh, after party for the cataloging meeting.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we're a fun group. It was one of my favorite committee meetings.
I will, before we turn the recording off and wrap it up, I will say too, for people who are new to cataloging or newbies or just want to dip their toe into something for some sort of more important reason, the good enough bibliographic record I put on it, let me go take a look at that again. It says things like city of publication, date of publication, the title, topic, subject. So it's telling you to not only it has it the label, but it doesn't, it's not a sample that says, for example, field 701 underscore Smith, comma, Sally. It says, you know, like, this is another author's surname, another author's forename. Oh, hey, Anne, so nice to see you.
Hi, you. My apologies for being late. It was actually 8 a.m. our time. So
we went back and forth on various websites and world clocks trying to figure it out. It's okay. We don't charge a penalty fee for anyone who's late. You're
Darn,
great.
I thought I was going to be shouting, around for the group.
Well, no, yes. Anytime anybody sees you at a koha conference, they are gonna, any of us, we are gonna say, oh, you owe me a drink. Well, this is being recorded and the chat will be captured too. David had a wonderful question about beginning cataloging resources, understanding MARC records. We threw a lot in the chat, and I mentioned a bug, do go look for it, of a preservation module under development that's really exciting because it looks like it's a whole workflow thing. Like items go into a waiting list and then they get assigned to different workflow trains. So I'm not only excited about it for managing preservation workflows, but I think it's a neat workflow design for when many staff want to send items off to a particular thing. Maybe many staff are paging for it. And then you have another staff member saying, okay, this one goes to that workflow, this one goes to that workflow, this one goes to that workflow. So Anne, anything you want to bring to the group? You know, when you're late, we put you on the spot.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, we kind of ran out of things to talk about, so please.
Not at the moment. It's just really nice to see you all again. I have been catching up with your recorded streams, but it's not quite the same thing. And often I can't see the chat for some reason. So, someone says, oh, we've put that in the chat and it's completely invisible on the recording. So
Oh no, I will double check. I know sometimes I have to do show more, and I think sometimes it might take longer for it to load. If anybody has any problems getting at anything in the chat, feel free to shoot me an email because I can always reach out and we can always try to find it and figure out what happened or reconstruct it. The koha-US folks, especially Jason, are always super helpful with that.
I secretly have a folder full of recordings and chat logs and stuff that I never delete, so I could probably backtrack if I really needed to.
That's fine. If there's anything that I really want to see, I'll get in touch with you about that. But thank you so much for running an afternoon for you session so that it's a not 3 a.m. in the morning session for me. So
it's really fun, and I appreciate folks dropping in because it really does emphasize that although koha-US is based in the US, we're not exclusively focused on the US. We really appreciate the global community and just, are grateful for it.
I'll ask one more question and then I guess probably people want to go. And this probably comes back to cataloging standards or conventions, but the titles of books or items, should you use sentence case or title case, or does that depend on what cataloging standards you're using? Or is it about making it readable for people searching for things in your catalog? I don't know whether it's a big issue or not, but I always get confused. Yeah.
It's an excellent question. And yes, as Michelle says, capitalize first word and proper nouns only. That has been the convention as established at least Anglo-American cataloging rules and RDA, except when there's something different required by the language. For example, German. In German, all nouns are going to be capitalized.
So for the rest of us, non-catalogers, it's sentence case. The way you would write a sentence is the way that you transcribe your title. Yes.
I know. That's really helpful because, yeah, I know. Yeah, no, that's really helpful because, yeah, it always seems to be a mixture of things I note. So, yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
And then you get the joy of records that have been created by some vendor and everything is in capitals.
Oh, yeah. You get those too?
Sadly, yes.
That's what I was going to say. And I've experimented a little bit with MARC Edit for, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thanks, everyone. That's great.
If the first word in the title is the, what happens to the second? Is that lowercase? Okay.
Lowercase.
That's what I thought.
It used to be different, going back a very long way, but right now it's just straightforward sentence case. And if you're looking at really old books in a library, like I'm talking about 70 or 80 years old, often on the title page, there'll be a little pencil mark under the first letter that is used for filing. So if it's like the mill on the floss, there'll be a tiny pencil mark under the M so that the poor cataloguing assistant knew which word that they needed to use for filing purposes.
Especially with foreign languages too.
Yeah.
Oh.
And you will see things that look a little bit confusing, like if it's about the entity known as the shadow, you're going to get the shadow knows, because shadow is a person.
And is the part of the title, right? The shadow.
Mm-hmm. And then you're going to get people who are not familiar with the shadow, and it's going to be the shadow. No, it's, yeah, now we're getting all fancy pants. But this can be important then in your authority control files. So say you have an authority record for the shadow and a 700 field for the shadow. Sometimes the case is going to affect your authority matching. I don't know in Koha, I haven't tested it. I just know that some systems are fussy about case and matching.
A quick aside, in several of my catalogs, test catalogs, the means administrator is last name librarian, first name the. Little zany cataloging humor for Thursday afternoon or Friday morning.
So in the grand scheme of things, David, it really seldom matters in the title to Koha.
And if it comes to that, it probably doesn't matter that much in the title for your customers. Who are, after all, the important ones here.
Yes. If I'm putting a record in for testing purposes and playing purposes, I usually will put the title in all capitals, because since all of our titles are usually in sentence case, I will put in something like, this is Heather's record for testing purposes in all capitals, and it really stands out and lets my staff know I'm playing around. I didn't want you to see this. I'm surprised if you are seeing it. Ignore it.
So is anyone going to the KohaCon?
In Finland? No.
Is it being screened, live screened, as some of them have been in the past? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to attempt to watch the live stream. I think it'll either in real time or maybe not. It depends. It'll be the opposite time zone because it's Europe, about 10 or 12 hours time different. So yeah, otherwise, hopefully the recordings will be available.
And I already made a hotel reservation for the koha-US conference. I hope I don't have to try to change that.
Where is the koha-US conference? This is entirely speculation. I'm not going to be flying to the US for it.
Oh, you'd be welcome. Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It's
New
along.
Hampshire. Oh, lovely.
It's along New Hampshire's, I think, 11 miles of coastline.
On the Atlantic East Coast, for those of you,
yes.
those of us unfamiliar with New Hampshire. It's a very small state. Very small.
Well, actually, it's a tall state, but there's only a little bit of coastline. They wedged a little bit in there. It's our neighboring state, so, but we're going to do virtual, I think.
I'll be a virtual attendee at conferences as much as possible and active in whatever chat opportunities are offered.
Heather, someday I hope to meet you in person.
I would love that too. If I stumble across a pot of money.
They've got to hold a Koha-Con in California sometime, Heather.
Oh, how I've tried. Oh, how I've tried.
Not sure anyone could afford a conference in San Francisco.
And we would need things like, oh, reliable Wi-Fi. Oh, wait, did I say that in my out loud voice? But anyway, yeah, infrastructure, staffing, it's a challenge.
Indeed. And how are you getting on with your latest Koha release? Good? You're happy?
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, I love 2211. If 2211 were physical, I would hug it. I really love it. We did stumble across some interesting hiccups, but nothing that wasn't solvable. Discovered a really weird thing in that there's a bug about when you print out a barcode range, since those numbers are not tied to any items yet, you can't get anything like a library name on them. There's just sort of nothing it's tied to get it on. And I had been playing with double checking that, testing it, trying it, and I had something like bibliographic data checked, something like that in the settings, and it resulted in an error. So let's see if I can get bug up. Let's see. Yes, here we go. Exporting labels as a barcode range can cause a 500 error. I'll put that in the chat. It's weird and avoidable, but it's one of those things that we found.
So what do you love about it? What makes your life better?
The design is wonderful. The design is absolutely wonderful. The new staff interface, the new cataloging landing page is a dream. It's a dream. I wish it was controllable to change the ratio of sizes, because the text in the title bars is very, very tiny. And if I just enlarge my browser windows, then the main bodies are really big, but that's a niggle. That's a tiny niggle. Some people have been noticing some serious system performance issues. We have a teeny weeny incy slowdown, but it's nothing major at all. I love that you can create a custom search facet or limit in something like this and save it and then put it at the top of your post search facets, either in the staff client or the OPAC or both. So I created a little thing that's like, give me only the 2023 items. That's like super duper. But the new cataloging landing page is a dream because it has the things I use most often right there. So I'm not saying they're going, is this in cataloging or was it administration or is it a tool?
Yeah, there was some interesting debate about that one as it was going through, because some people said, oh, it's all changed. And and I can't find anything under tools now. So, and Martin, you know, one of the developers at PTF Europe, started it off. But and I think the plan, but he's always busy, was to try and do that for some of the other modules, depending on the feedback from this one. But yeah, the challenge is some of the tools are the same for authorities as well. So yeah, it's always a bit of challenge duplicating. Well, some of the batch modification tools are authority records related as well. So I guess you just, but then authorities are sort of cataloging as well. So maybe.
You can put buttons in more than one place.
Yeah.
But you know,
the issue that I would have with that is that I have staff that I only want to see the cataloging client. Thank you very much. I don't want them to be looking at batch modification tools and potentially playing with batch modification tools when they don't know what they're doing. Can you still lock that down?
yes, I find that the permissions are still incredibly
Right.
granular. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But before you upgrade, I would go look at a 2211 demo system to prepare.
Yeah, we're probably not going to upgrade unless there is something outstanding for us, because we have so much customization done that it costs a heck of a lot to reapply it all to what we, you know, to whatever the next iteration is, and we cannot do without our customizations. They are, you know, absolutely business critical for us.
I think that's fairly common too, and I know institutions in that situation tend to wait until there's something really fabulous for them, and then they'll do like a leapfrog.
Yeah, for my author's catalog, I think I went from 1705 to 2211. So I finally decided, okay, a lot of this is going to be obsolete soon. It's not supported. Okay, maybe it's time. There are a couple of things about 2211 that I don't like. It's when I stage records and then import records, I end up at a different place that I'm used to. And I think in 2305, after you stage, the link to manage record or manage stage records isn't there. Again, little things. It just means I have to click in a few more places.
Yeah,
I was frustrated with that. It required like 3 or 4 more clicks, and I had to like look for the really small print to know where to click.
I was gonna say that's one of the big frustrations that I've heard. Like the number one question I've gotten so far since our upgrade was, where's batch deletion? I can't find batch deletion. So that tells me all the people that didn't actually watch my training. And then the second one is the weird way that staging records feels now. Like there's extra clicks. There's also a point at which you have to like wait for the page to reload before you get a link to go somewhere. and it's just awkward. The user end of things is more awkward than it was previously.
And maybe I just haven't uploaded a big enough batch, but you see the you click on stage and it's at 0%, and then suddenly it's at 100%. You see, does anyone see it crawl from 10, 20, 30%? Okay, it does.
You have to refresh, because I felt like I at 0, and I'm like, it's been 10 minutes. It's got to be somewhere. And then I refreshed it, and it was like at 30 or 4. It felt like it took longer to import the records back into 2211 than in 2205, but that could have been because the other one, you kind of got a little bit more warning of like something is happening, and that's gone. So it's all in my perception. It's not really taking longer. It just feels like it's taking longer. But that's annoying.
I only import batches of authority records. My bibs are always via the gateway, and my authority batches are very small, so I really haven't noticed any problems.
Yeah, we only import vendor records, and those haven't been slow.
Just introducing
Yeah,
you to us.
There's been quite, there's been quite a few. Oh, nice.
Now she's run away.
Yep.
Yeah, with the batch. Yeah. Yeah, with their batch jobs, they changed a lot over the last few releases, and it's caused lots of bugs, so to speak. And then the user interface changes as well with 2211. So yeah, I'd suggest reporting those even if nothing happens straight away, because yeah, there's lots of, I've noticed in the ISE chat and the mailing list, there always seems to be some challenges with the change, and it's a bit frustrating when you can't see things or it doesn't work.
And if you don't tell people that there's a problem, they don't know. So if you're having problems with batch loading, you've got to tell somebody, or nobody knows that you've got a problem.
And that's one reason why I went ahead and put in the bug for the new authority MARC preview. It's like, well, maybe I'm the only one that cares. And if so, it's not going to get any traction. It's just going to sit there. And then we're going to say in a few years, well, okay, whatever, resolved, fix, or not. Maybe this is a way I'm going to find people who care.
What I really like about 2211, is the ability to add more pages to the main screen. Relatively painlessly.
So what I'm sort of hearing is that it's more about design and feel rather than functionality.
Except for the being able to save search facets.
Yeah, not a big issue for us. No customers.
Yeah.
We're a really weird library. We don't have an OPAC. We don't have an acquisitions module. We have nothing except cataloging.
Our biggest issue, which we brought up before, is in the slowness in the circulation, but it hasn't been an issue so far in the cataloging part.
Yeah, there's been lots of changes under the hood, lots of technical things, I think, and yeah, it tends to have some flow-on effects sometimes until they get sorted out, which is frustrating, but anyway.
Does anyone know if there is a way to, I know with the new creation of web pages, we're a consortium, and some of our libraries would like to have a static website for their selected library instead of all libraries. Without, like, if we log in, then yes, it's their library is pre-selected. But I was wondering if with the new changes, can you create a static home page with the library selected in on the OPAC, or are they kind of stuck? Does anyone know? Anyone else have that problem or have that desire?
We use Aspen. Go ahead, Michelle.
It seems possible because I'm in the HTML customization right now, and I'm in the OPAC header, and it says I can choose a library. So it says all libraries, and then it lists all of the other libraries. So possibly, because then you could just choose the library.
All right. Try that. Thanks.
Well, and I think you could just like make a page and then redirect to that page for that specific library, maybe. I think if you limit it by branch in the pages setting, you may have to be logged in to see it at that branch. I'm not sure what the branch level situation is with those pages, but the news is like that. So like if you create something in a news, you only see it if you're logged in at that branch, if it's branch limited. I do know that Christopher brought up this idea, and there's a bug and I can't find it, but about like having a parameter for tracking in the URL for tracking clicks, maybe, which could be a possible solution for that, where you're directing to a certain thing for certain people. But we just, for our OPAC, it's just one. We're trying to be a cohesive service, so we don't have like branch specific landing pages.
We're so scattered that it would be nice if this one small group could have I guess it would be more a static page for the group, not for the individual library.
I think this would be a really good question for the web dev special interest group.
Okay.
Yeah, are all your libraries connected? Like, can the library in Chad look at the library in Germany? Okay.
If all libraries is selected, then they see materials in all the libraries. Though we do have some materials that are hidden that you have to be logged in as a patron of that library to see those materials, because no, we're not sharing those. We don't share everything. I wish we could do that with electronic resources, because we haven't quite figured out, like I've got some electronic resources would be for our Asia libraries, but no one else. And I would love to be able to put them in, and only those Asia libraries see those resources, but no one else. Because why see a record for a resource that you would have to pay to, like, you don't have access to it? I'm not paying your, libraries can only pay for their patrons.
I think this would be a good topic for the the web dev system administration group, because there might be people there too that have more experience or have any experience. I have no experience with the electronic resources management area.
So you're really talking about scoping the display in your OPAC. Yeah.
And I know Aspen is a really common implementation for that with Koha.
It is, and we were looking into that, but it costs money.
Aspen is open source.
It's not quite open source as Koha yet. There's not enough documentation on how to install it.
The other one's VU Find, which a lot of people use, but I haven't seen either of them recently, so I can't really comment on features and yeah.
The problem we had with installing Aspen was also the problem we had with Viewfind. Our IT guy is like, I can't you evidently need to know a certain level of some kind of language or something that was beyond his skill set. And I'm like, I get it. I won't ask anymore. You know, I want it. One day.
Well,
do go
to the web dev system administration special interest group. Yeah. Well, it's after the top of the hour, so I'm going to thank everyone for coming and stop the recording.